The prison transport ship hummed quietly as it carried Commander Taeho Kim away from Earth. Through the small viewport, he watched his home planet shrink to a tiny blue dot. His hands were bound with electronic cuffs that blinked red every few seconds. 20 guards stood watch over their single prisoner. Taeho was not a murderer or thief, but something the Earth government considered more dangerous, a scientist whose work they feared. 3 hours until cryo-sleep, announced a cold voice over the intercom. Taeho nodded silently. 3 days ago, he had stood before the Global Security Council. The judges wore stern faces as they listed his crimes: unauthorized energy research, development of dangerous technology, reckless endangerment of Earth. His dark energy project, the Horizon Protocol, had been his life's work. It promised unlimited clean energy for a resource-starved planet. But during the final test, something went wrong. An uninhabited island vanished in a flash of light. There were no casualties, but the fear was immediate and overwhelming. "I was sabotaged," Taeho had argued at his trial. The calculations were perfect. Someone changed the settings. But no one listened. Now he sat alone, sentenced to permanent exile on a mining colony circling Proxima Centauri. The journey would take 15 years in cryosleep. He would never see Earth again. Guard Sangmin approached with a tray of food. Unlike the others, Sangmin treated him with a measure of respect. "Last meal before the long sleep," Sangmin said, placing the tray before him. "Not much, but I added an extra dessert. Don't tell anyone." Taeho managed a small smile. "Thank you." As he ate, Taeho studied the stars outside his viewport. His thoughts drifted to Ho-Jin, his research partner and the only person who had stood by him. "I'll find out who did this," Ho-Jin had promised, during their final meeting. "I'll clear your name." Taeho doubted he would succeed. Too many powerful people had wanted the Horizon Protocol buried, along with its creator. The ship suddenly shuddered. The lights flickered. "Captain, we're picking up unusual readings," a crew member called out from the bridge. "Some kind of spatial anomaly ahead." The captain's voice came through the intercom. "Change course, full reverse thrusters." Too late. The ship lurched violently, throwing Taeho against the wall. Warning alarms blared throughout the vessel. "What's happening?" Sangmin shouted, helping Taeho to his feet. The ship's scientist rushed into the prisoner compartment, his face pale. "It's a wormhole or something like it. It wasn't there a minute ago." Through the viewport, Taeho saw space itself twist and fold. A swirling vortex of light pulled at the ship. The engines screamed as they fought against the pull, but it was useless. "Everyone brace for impact," the captain yelled. The ship plunged into the light. Taeho felt his body stretch and compress at the same time. The sensation was both painful and fascinating. Then darkness claimed him. When he opened his eyes, Taeho found himself lying on the floor. The ship was silent. The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over twisted metal and broken equipment. "Sangmin," he called out, pulling himself up. His electronic cuffs had short-circuited and fallen away. The guard lay nearby, bleeding from a head wound but alive. "Where are we?" Sangmin groaned. Taeho looked out the damaged viewport and froze. The stars were wrong, the constellations unrecognizable. And dominating the view was an enormous red sun, pulsing irregularly, surrounded by 7 planets of various sizes. "Not in our solar system," Taeho whispered. "Not even close." Captain Jun-ho appeared, limping badly. "Half the crew is dead. Life support is failing. And according to what's left of our navigation system, we're not just off course." He paused, struggling with the words. "We're in another galaxy altogether." Taeho stared at the dying red giant star. "This system is collapsing," he said. "That star has maybe a century before it goes supernova." "Can we get back?" Sangmin asked. Captain Jun-ho shook his head. "The wormhole closed behind us. We're stranded." More survivors gathered in the prisoner compartment, 11 crew members in total. Their prison transport was now a lifeless husk, and Earth was unreachable. "We need to land somewhere," Taeho said. "That third planet looks habitable." Captain Jun-ho, regarded him with suspicion. "Why should we listen to you? You're still a prisoner." Tae-ho met his gaze steadily. "Because the technology that got me banished might be the only thing that can help us survive." 3 days later, the damaged ship entered the atmosphere of the third planet. Through breaks in the clouds, they glimpsed vast oceans and a single massive continent. And something else. The unmistakable lights of a civilization. As the ship plummeted toward the surface, Tae-ho realized the cosmic irony. Earth had cast him out, fearing his knowledge might destroy them. Now, that same knowledge might save him. And perhaps an entire alien world, in a dying galaxy far from home. 5 years had passed since the crash. Tae-ho stood on a high balcony overlooking the city of Nixara, the capital of this alien world. The morning light of the red giant sun cast everything in a warm glow. Below him, the streets bustled with both Nixians, the tall, four-eyed natives of this planet, and the handful of human survivors who had integrated into their society. "Administrator Kim," called a melodic voice behind him. "The council is waiting." Tae-ho turned to see Yoonji, his Nixian assistant. Her blue skin shimmered in the sunlight. When they first landed, the Nixians had been suspicious of the strange beings who fell from the sky. Now Tae-ho led their scientific division. "Thank you, Yoonji. I just needed a moment." The path from prisoner to leader had been unexpected. After the crash, which only 8 humans survived, the Nixians had taken them in more out of curiosity than kindness. But when Tae-ho witnessed their struggling technology and the effects of their dying son, he offered his help. Using parts salvaged from the prison ship and his knowledge of dark energy, Tae-ho created a small stabilizer that extended the life of their power plants. The Nixians were amazed. They had been facing slow extinction as their son's radiation increased. Their protective shields were failing. "The representatives from Caldora have arrived," Yoonji said as they walked through the wide corridors of the science hall. "They brought the mineral samples you requested." Caldora was the 4th planet in the system, home to another intelligent species. Word had spread about the human scientist who could work miracles with dying stars. The council chamber was filled with different beings. The Nixian elders sat in their traditional circle. Captain Jun-ho and Sang-min, now advisors rather than captors, represented the human survivors. And in the corner stood the delegation from Caldora, short, stocky beings with golden scales. "Administrator Kim," the head elder spoke. "The Caldorans have confirmed what our sensors detected. Their sun shields are failing too." Tae-ho nodded. It wasn't just this solar system. The entire sector of the galaxy was experiencing accelerated stellar decay. The very thing his Horizon Protocol had been designed to prevent on Earth was happening, on a galactic scale here. "I believe I can help," Tae-ho said. "But I'll need resources from both worlds, and access to the ancient space station orbiting the 5th planet." The Caldoran leader stepped forward. "You ask for much, Earthman. How do we know your solution won't make things worse?" Tae-ho activated the holographic projector in the center of the room. A small-scale model of his new design appeared, an upgraded version of the Horizon Protocol. "This will create a field that stabilizes your sun for at least 300 years, he explained, long enough to develop more permanent solutions or even relocate if necessary. The room fell silent as they studied the design. It was far beyond their current technology. "I was sent away from my world because they feared this technology," Tae-ho said quietly. "They thought it too dangerous, but here now, it may be your only hope." 6 months later, Tae-ho stood on the observation deck of the ancient space station, now repurposed as his laboratory. Through the viewport, he watched as the first dark energy collector activated near the red giant sun. A web of blue light spread across the star's surface, calming its violent flares. "It's working," Sang-min said, standing beside him. Their relationship had evolved from guard and prisoner to something like friendship. "Yes," Tae-ho replied. "The star's decay has slowed by 50%. The radiation levels will drop within days." A communication screen lit up. The face of a being neither of them had seen before appeared, gray-skinned with 6 eyes arranged in a circle. "I am Munhi of Vega System," the alien said in a translated voice. "We have observed your work with the star. Our sun also dies. Will you help us?" Taeho looked at Sangmin in surprise. "Vega was 3 light-years away. How did you contact us?" Taeho asked. "We have watched for many cycles," Munhi replied. "Many systems suffer as yours does. We have old ships. We can come to you. We bring resources." After the call ended, Taeho walked to the station's main window. The stars looked different here, but the science was the same. Dark energy could save these worlds, just as he had always believed it could save Earth. "They'll keep coming," Sangmin said. "Word will spread." "Let them come," Taeho replied. "We'll help them all." In the years that followed, ships arrived from distant systems, each bringing news of dying stars and desperate civilizations. The space station grew into a massive complex. Taeho's team expanded to include scientists from 12 different species. The man Earth had banished was becoming something more than a scientist or administrator. To the peoples of this dying galaxy, Taeho Kim was becoming a savior. And sometimes in the quiet moments between his work, Taeho would look toward the empty space where the Milky Way galaxy would be, invisible at this distance, and wonder if Earth had yet realized what they had thrown away. 20 years had passed since the crash that brought Taeho Kim to this dying galaxy. The command center of Nexus Station hummed with activity as representatives from 30 different star systems reported in. Massive view screens showed the progress of stellar stabilization projects across what was now known as the Remnant Concordat, Taeho's growing alliance of worlds united by the need to survive. Taeho stood at the central platform, his once black hair now streaked with gray. The prison uniform from Earth had long since been replaced by the formal blue robes of the Chancellor. At 55, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had built an empire from nothing. "Chancellor, the Vega system reports complete stabilization," said Hyojin, his chief of operations. Once a junior scientist from the Nixian homeworld, she had become his most trusted advisor. "That makes 17 systems secured this year alone." Taeho nodded with satisfaction. "And the new shipyards at Caldora?" "Production is ahead of schedule. The first fleet of deep space rescue vessels will launch next month." Their conversation was interrupted by Bora, the communications director. Her 6-eyed face showed the Vegan equivalent of excitement. "Chancellor, we've detected an unregistered ship entering the system. Its energy signature, it's from Earth." The command center fell silent. No one had spoken the name of Taeho's homeworld in years. "Confirm," Taeho said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Confirmed," Bora replied. "The design is new, but the identification codes are definitely from Earth's Space Authority. They're requesting permission to dock." Taeho turned to Hyojin. "Prepare the diplomatic reception hall and alert security, respectful but vigilant." 3 hours later, Taeho stood in the grand hall of Nexus Station. Around him were representatives from the major worlds of the Concordat, a display of unity and strength for the visitors from his former home. The doors slid open. 5 humans entered, their eyes widening as they took in the assembly of alien beings. Leading them was a woman in an Earth government uniform. "Commander Taeho Kim?" she asked, clearly struggling to hide her shock at finding him not only alive, but obviously in a position of power. "Chancellor Kim," Hyojin corrected firmly, from beside him. Taeho raised his hand slightly, signaling Hyojin to stand down. "I am Taeho Kim," he said simply. "And you are?" The woman straightened. "Ambassador Sumin Lee of the United Earth Government. We've been searching for this galaxy for years. The wormhole that took your prison transport was a random event. We couldn't replicate until now." Taeho allowed himself a small smile. "And what brings Earth's representatives so far from home, Ambassador Lee?" Sumin hesitated, looking around at the gathered aliens. "We came looking for survivors from the prison transport. Finding you in this position was unexpected." "I imagine so," Taeho replied. "The man you sent away to die has instead built something rather substantial." He gestured to the massive window overlooking the space dock, where hundreds of ships from across the Concordat were moored. The Earth delegation moved to the window, their faces showing clear amazement. All this, in 20 years, Sumin whispered. Necessity breeds innovation, Tejo said. This galaxy is dying, Ambassador. Its stars are failing faster than they should. We've united to survive. Sumin turned to face him. Chancellor, I bring news from Earth. The Global Security Council has reviewed your case. New evidence came to light. Your research partner Hojin never stopped working to clear your name. Tejo felt a tightness in his chest at the mention of his old friend. Your experiment was sabotaged, Sumin continued. Your theories were correct, and now Earth faces the same energy crisis you predicted. The Council has authorized me to offer a full pardon. They want you to return. A murmur ran through the alien representatives. Hyjin stepped closer to Tejo, concern evident in her 4 eyes. Before Tejo could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Bora's voice came over the communication system. Chancellor, multiple unidentified warships have decloaked. Near the station. They're charging weapons. The main screen activated to show a fleet of black ships with organic-looking designs unlike anything in the Concordat. The Ancestral Collective, Hyejin said grimly. They've finally made their move. Tejo turned to the stunned Earth delegation. It seems our reunion has triggered something, Ambassador. The oldest species in this galaxy have long resented our growth. They see your arrival as a threat. We came in peace, Sumin protested. They don't care about your intentions, Tejo replied, already moving toward the command center. They fear what humans represent, adaptability, innovation, the very qualities that allowed me to build the Concordat. As they hurried through the corridors, Sumin asked, What will you do? Tejo's expression hardened. Defend what I've built. Your arrival has forced a confrontation that's been brewing for years. He activated his neural link to the Concordat defense network. Across the galaxy, thousands of ships responded to his command. The man you exiled to protect Earth will now protect you, he said. Welcome to the remnant Concordat, Ambassador. It seems you've arrived just in time for war. The massive view screen on the bridge of the Prometheus showed the battle unfolding in space. Tejo stood calmly, his hands clasped behind his back as he directed the defense of Nexus Station. Around him, officers from a dozen alien species worked at their stations, responding to his quiet commands. Ambassador Su-Min Lee and her Earth delegation watched in amazement. The Concordat ships moved with precision, their formations fluid and unpredictable. The attacking vessels of the Ancestral Collective, black organic-looking craft, seemed confused by the tactics. Shield network at 80%, reported Hyejin. Enemy weapons are having minimal effect. Tejo nodded. Deploy the mirror drones. Small devices launched from the defending ships, spreading out into a web-like pattern. When the ancestral ships fired their energy weapons, the drones caught and redirected the blasts back at the attackers. That's impossible, whispered one of the Earth scientists. They're reflecting directed energy weapons? A simple application of dark energy principles, Tejo explained without turning. The technology your world feared has evolved considerably over 20 years. On the screen, 3 enemy vessels erupted in silent explosions as their own weapons were turned against them. The remaining ancestral ships began to retreat. They're pulling back, Hyejin announced. Let them go, Tejo ordered. But track their course. I want to know where they regroup. When the all-clear sounded, Tejo led the Earth delegation to his private conference room. The walls displayed maps of both galaxies, the dying one he now called home and the distant Milky Way containing Earth. You said you came seeking survivors, Tejo said, facing Ambassador Su-Min. But I think there's more to it than that. Su-Min exchanged glances with her team before responding. You're right. Earth is facing a crisis. The energy shortages you predicted have come to pass. But there's something worse. She placed a data device on the table. 3 years ago, our deep space telescopes detected accelerated stellar decay in our galaxy's outer arm. The pattern matches what you're experiencing here. Taeho activated the device. Holographic images appeared, showing stars collapsing faster than their natural life cycle should allow. The same pattern, he said quietly. It's spreading to the Milky Way. We believe so, Sumin confirmed. That's why finding you is more important than we could have imagined. You've been fighting this for 20 years. Taeho studied the data carefully. The Ancestral Collective is responsible. We've suspected for years but couldn't prove it. He pressed a button on the table. A hidden compartment opened, revealing a small, pulsing black object. We captured this from one of their scout ships. It's a stellar accelerator. They place these devices inside stars, causing them to burn faster, collapse sooner. But why? Asked Sumin. What possible reason would they have to destroy entire galaxies? The door opened, and Sang-min entered. The former prison guard was now Taeho's head of intelligence, his hair white with age. We've decoded more of their communications, Sang-min reported. It confirms our theory. The Ancestral Collective doesn't just watch stars die. They feed on the energy released during stellar collapse. They're parasites, Taeho said, an ancient species that evolved to harvest dying stars. But natural stellar death is too slow for their needs, so they accelerate the process. The Earth delegation looked horrified. Sumin turned to Taeho. And now they're targeting our galaxy? They've likely been doing it for thousands of years, Taeho explained, moving from one galaxy to another as they exhaust each one. The wormhole that brought us here wasn't random. It was one of their pathways between feeding grounds. The ship shuddered slightly. Hyejin's voice came over the communication system. Chancellor, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Ancestral Collective. They're requesting to speak with you directly. Put it through, Taeho ordered. The main screen filled with the image of a being unlike any the Earth delegation had seen. A shifting mass of dark energy shaped roughly like a humanoid, with countless small lights swirling within it. Taeho. Kim of Earth. The being spoke, its voice resonating oddly. You have interfered with the natural order long enough. Your experiments with dark energy are clumsy imitations of our work. Your work is genocide, Taeho replied evenly. You destroy entire galaxies for your sustenance. We are the ancients. We existed before your kind evolved from pond scum. It is our right to feed. Sumin stepped forward. You're attacking our galaxy now. Billions of innocent lives. Irrelevant, the ancient cut her off. Your galaxy is ripe. We have cultivated it for millennia. The harvest begins now. The transmission ended abruptly. Alarms sounded throughout the ship. Multiple wormholes opening, Hyejin reported. They're creating a direct path to the Milky Way. Taeho's expression hardened. Alert all concordant forces. This isn't just about our galaxy anymore. He turned to Sumin. Ambassador, it seems our worlds must stand together or fall separately. What can Earth possibly do against this? Sumin asked, fear evident in her voice. 20 years ago, Earth feared my work with dark energy. Taeho said, his eyes focused on the tactical display showing the growing threat. Now that same work may be your only hope. The question is, will your world trust me this time? The space between galaxies was no longer empty. A massive structure stretched across the void. The Bifrost Bridge, named after an ancient Earth legend. Its crystalline surface reflected the light of distant stars, creating a rainbow effect visible from both galaxies. At its center stood the control station where Taeho Kim oversaw the final preparations. Energy flow is stable, reported Minho, the chief scientist who had joined the project from one of the outer concordant worlds. The bridge can support full traffic in both directions. Taeho nodded, his face showing the weariness of 3 years of non-stop work. After the Ancestral Collective had revealed their plan to harvest the Milky Way, Taeho had proposed something no one thought possible, connecting 2 galaxies with a permanent passage. Begin the transport sequence, he ordered. On the massive view screen, hundreds of ships moved into position. They carried refugees from dying star systems, scientists and soldiers prepared to defend Earth against the coming threat. Ambassador. Sumin approached Taeho holding a tablet. The Earth Defense Council has approved your plan. All major nations have signed the agreement. It took them long enough, Tejo remarked with a small smile. 3 years ago, when he first returned to Earth after 20 years of exile, many still viewed him with suspicion. Only the immediate threat of the ancestral collective had convinced them to listen. People fear what they don't understand, Sumin replied. But your actions have spoken louder than any words could. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from Bora at the communications station. Chancellor, our deep space sensors have detected the ancestral fleet. They're moving toward the bridge. The tactical display showed thousands of black ships approaching from multiple directions. The ancestral collective had gathered their entire remaining force for one final attack. They know if the bridge stands, they're feeding grounds in both. Galaxies will be protected, Tejo said. They're desperate. He pressed a button on his command console. Across both galaxies, a message went out to all Concordat and Earth forces. Initiate Horizon Protocol. Throughout space, thousands of dark energy collectors, refined versions of Taiho's original band technology, activated simultaneously. Each one created a small field that disrupted the Ancestral's ability to manipulate space. The trap is set, Tejo said quietly. The enemy fleet continued its approach, apparently unaware of the danger. When they reached the midpoint between the galaxies, Tejo gave the final command. Close the net. The dark energy fields connected, forming a vast web that ensnared the ancestral ships. Their organic vessels twisted and struggled, but could not break free. What are you doing to them? Sumin asked, watching the strange sight. Converting them, Tejo explained. The ancestrals are essentially living dark energy themselves. The collectors are redirecting that energy, transforming it into the power needed to permanently stabilize the bridge. On the screen, the black ships began to dissolve, their energy flowing into the bridge structure. The crystalline pathway glowed brighter, becoming stronger. They spent eons consuming galaxies, Tejo said. Now they will serve life instead of destroying it. Hours later, when the transformation was complete, the first refugee ships began their journey across the bridge. From the observation deck, Tejo and Sumin watched families who had lost their homes to dying stars travel toward new lives in the Milky Way. The United Earth government has officially rescinded your exile, Sumin said, handing Tejo a formal document bearing the seal of the Global Security Council. You're free to return home permanently. Tejo looked at the paper, then at the stream of ships flowing across the bridge, carrying hope, resources, and refugees between galaxies. The Concordat needs leadership during the transition, he said, and there are still stars to save in this galaxy. You're not coming back to Earth? Sumin asked, surprised. Earth was quick to cast me out and slow to welcome me back, Tejo replied without bitterness. But more importantly, my work isn't finished here. A small ship approached the control station. Its design was different from both Earth vessels and Concordat craft. As it docked, Hiejin entered the observation deck. Chancellor, they're ready. For you. Tejo nodded and turned to Sumin. I've been invited to meet with the representatives of both galaxies. They want to discuss the formation of a new government, an intergalactic council with members from all worlds. And they want you to lead it, Sumin guessed. They've asked me to serve as first counselor, Tejo admitted. A position I never sought, but one I cannot refuse if it means securing peace between our peoples. As they walked toward the meeting chamber, Tejo paused at a viewport. The bridge stretched before him, connecting the galaxy that had rejected him with the one that had embraced him. Ships moved in both directions, carrying people, knowledge, and resources. 25 years ago, I was branded too dangerous for one planet, he said softly. Now I find myself responsible for 2 galaxies. Sumin smiled. Perhaps that's exactly why you were the right person for this moment. You understand both worlds. Tejo straightened his formal robes and entered the chamber where representatives from 2 galaxies waited. The man who had been banished from Earth had found his true purpose, not ruling over the remnants of a collapsing galaxy but building a bridge to save them all.